Hi, it's Alan Begg here from TEFL, and welcome to this week's TEFL TESOL ESL lesson. This week's lesson is going to be on the subject of conditionals. It's going to be a PPP style lesson, presentation, practice and production. Let's do a little warm-up exercise to see what you might already know about this week's topic of conditional. Can you tell me which word is the correct option in this sentence? The teacher is, will, or would be suspicious if we all got 100%. The answer is, the teacher would be suspicious if we all got 100%. Would be is a conditional. Second example, if I can have, if I could have, if I have any car, I'd buy a Ferrari. The answer is, if I could have any car, I'd buy a Ferrari. Could have is a conditional. Example 3. Joe will stay in bed all day if he don't feel, doesn't feel, or didn't feel very well. The answer is, Joe will stay in bed all day if he doesn't feel very well. Doesn't feel is a conditional. Example 4. If Rob had more free time, he would join a cycling club. The answer is, if Rob had more free time, he would join a cycling club. Example 5. You'll be very tired tomorrow if you stay, don't stay, or didn't stay up late tonight. The answer is, you'll be very tired tomorrow if you stay up late tonight. These are all examples of conditionals. Did you guess any of them correct already? If you did, you already know what conditionals are. Let's look at some theory into the specifics of conditionals, what they are, and when to use them. So, what are conditionals? A conditional is the thing that must happen before something else can happen. A conditional is a thing that must happen before something else can happen. What does that mean? Well, we say that something happening is conditional on something else having already happened. We say that something happening is conditional on something else having happened. Conditionals are sentences containing if or similar words such as when. Conditionals are sentences containing if or similar words such as when. Sentences containing conditionals refer to past, present, or future possibilities. Things that will happen or could, should, would, or might happen. Sentences containing conditionals refer to past, present, or future possibilities. Things that will not happen or could not, should not, would not, or might not happen. So the negative is available also. Here's an example of a conditional in the past tense. You would have got wet if it had rained. You would have gotten wet if it had rained. So this is what would have happened if something else had happened. Getting wet would be conditional on it having rained. So the format for a conditional in the past tense is if or when something had happened, then something else would or could have happened in the past also. In the example that we saw in the previous slide, the person would have got wet if it had been raining. Here's a conditional example in the present tense. When it rains, I take an umbrella to work. Here's the present tense format for a conditional. If or when something is happening now, something else is also happening now. Here's an example of a conditional in the future tense. If it rains tomorrow, I will drive to work. Here's the format for a future tense conditional. If or when something happens in the future, then something else would or could also happen in the future. In the example that we saw, if it rains tomorrow, then the person would drive to work. There are 5 different types of conditionals. Type 1 is the zero conditional. Type 2 is the first conditional. Type 3 is the second conditional. Type 4 is the third conditional, and type 5 is the mixed conditional. Zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and mixed conditional. We're going to go through these one at a time. starting with the zero conditional. What is the zero conditional? The zero conditional refers to actions and facts in the present tense that are proven to be definitely true. The zero conditional refers to actions and facts in the present tense that are proven to be definitely true. Facts. For the zero conditional, you can use if or when without changing the meaning. Here's the sentence structure when using the zero conditional. If or when plus present tense, then the thing that happens as a result of the condition happening is also in the present tense. If something happens now, something will definitely also happen now. That's the sentence structure for zero conditional. Here's some examples of zero conditionals. If you mix blue and red, you get purple. If it rains, the grass will be wet. When I go to bed early, I always get very early. When I make a silly mistake, I just laugh. These are examples of zero conditional. They're facts. If something happens in the present tense, something else definitely, factually, positively will happen also in the present tense. The zero conditional is the present tense and facts, things that indisputably will happen as a result of something else happening. Type 2. What are first conditionals? First conditional refers to a real situation in the future tense that is possible, probable, or even definitely certain to happen once the condition has happened. So first conditional, future tense, and it's something that results that's possible, probable, or even definitely certain, highly likely to happen as a result of something else having already happened in the future. The sentence structure is if or when, present simple tense, the thing occurring, then the thing in the future will definitely occur as a result. Here's some examples. If we need to, we will rent a car. When I find her address, I will send her an invitation. Elaine will buy the drinks if somebody helps her carry the bottles. So these are things that are going to happen in the future, but the result of the conditional happening is probable, likely, or definitely going to happen. Type 3. What are second conditionals? The second conditional refers to an unreal situation, a made-up situation, in the present or future tense that is untrue now and is unlikely to ever be true. So, second conditional is talking about speculation, pure speculation. The sentence structure for the second conditional: if or when something happens in the past simple or past continuous, in the future the resultant would, could or might happen. Here's some examples of the second conditional. If he had more time, he would learn karate. She could win the prize if she practiced hard. So, second conditional are things that are not likely to happen, unlikely to happen. For example, here, if she had more time, well, she doesn't have more time, so she's not going to learn how to perform karate. In this case here, she could win a prize if she practiced hard. Well, she's not going to practice hard, so she's not going to win the prize. It's unlikely to happen. Third conditionals, type 4. The third conditional refers to an unreal in the past tense, and the unreal consequence of that action is also in the past tense. So we saw previously type 3, the second conditional, referred to unreal, unlikely events in the present and future tense. The third conditional is the same, but it's in the past tense. So unlikely, unrealistic events, but in the past tense. Sentence structure for the third conditional is if, then past perfect of the verb, then would, could or might have, and then the past participle verb of the result of the conditional. Here's some examples of the third conditional. If she had studied hard last week, she could have passed the exam. But the thing is, she didn't study hard, so she could never have passed that exam. It's already happened. She already didn't pass the test because she already didn't study hard. I would have written you a postcard if I had had your address, but I didn't have your address in the past, so I could never have sent you a postcard. The last type, type 5, mixed conditionals. Mixed conditionals usually refers to a mixture of second and third conditionals. If you've remembered so far, the second and third conditionals are the unlikely ones. This is when the condition refers to the past tense, but the consequence refers to the present tense. sentence structure for the mixed conditional is if, then the past perfect of the verb, then would or would not, and then the resultant condition in the present tense. If she hadn't stayed up late last night, she wouldn't be so tired now. If he had studied harder at school, he would be at university now. So the hadn't studied is in the past tense, and the result of that condition is in the present tense. The condition is in the past tense, and the result is in the present tense. But these are unlikely still, because she did stay up late last night. So that's why she's tired. It's already happened. And this person here didn't study harder at school. So she's not at university now because it's already happened. She didn't study hard. So let's do a little summary. These conditionals are quite difficult to get your head round as to the exact type of conditional. As with other learning disciplines in English, it's not vitally important that you can identify which specific type of conditional is being used. The important thing, as always, is just to recognise and be able to use conditionals. We say that something happening is conditional on something else having happened or happening at the moment. Conditionals are sentences containing the likes of if or when. Let's do some multiple choice practice questions to see if you've understood so far. The first example is going to be the zero conditional. Remember, that's dealing with the present tense and facts, things that are undisputably true. First conditional is things that are likely or almost definitely likely to be true. Second conditional is things in the present and future that are unlikely or definitely not going to happen. Third conditional is things that happened in the past with consequences that are very unlikely or almost definitely not going to happen or would never have happened, couldn't have happened. And the mixed conditional is things that were unlikely to happen in the past that would have consequences in the present and the future. Again, unlikely to happen. So zero conditional, things that definitely are true. First conditional, things that are likely to be true. Second conditional, unlikely to be true in the present and the future. Third conditional, unlikely to be true in the past tense. And mixed conditional, also unlikely to be true, but they happened in the past, and the resultant conditional impact is in the present or the future. So to continue our summary, zero conditional refers to actions and facts in the present tense that are proven to be definitely true. Zero conditional is dealing with facts. Let's try an example of the zero conditional. Can you identify out of these three statements which is the zero conditional? It's B. If you boil water, you will get steam. That's something happening in the present with a result in the present, and it's true. It's a fact. Let's now look at an example of the first conditional. The first conditional refers to a real situation in the future tense that is possible, probable, or even definitely certain once the condition has happened. Let's look at three sentences again and see if you can identify the example of the use of the first conditional. If he studies hard, he will pass. If he'd studied hard, he'd have passed. If he studies hard, he'd pass. The answer is A. If he studies hard, he will pass. So the studying hard is in the present, and the consequence, which is likely to happen, is that he will pass in the future. Let's look at an example of the second conditional. Remember, second conditional refers to an unreal situation, unlikely situation in the present or future tense that is untrue now and is unlikely to ever be true. Three sentences here. Can you identify the second conditional example? I've won the lottery, I'm buying a Ferrari. If I won the lottery, I bought a Ferrari. If I won the lottery, I would buy a Ferrari. The example here, the correct use of the second conditional is, if I won the lottery, I would buy a Ferrari. So it's very, very, very unlikely that someone is going to win the lottery. So it's very, very unlikely that in the future they would ever buy a Ferrari. So something that's unlikely to happen now has a very unlikely consequence in the future. The third conditional. The third conditional refers to an unreal action in the past tense and the unreal consequences of that action also in the past tense. So, second conditional was something unlikely to happen now with an equally unlikely resultant action and consequence in the future. The third conditional is an unlikely action in the past which had an equally unlikely resultant action in the past also. Three sentences again. Can you pick out the use of the third conditional? If I'd practiced the violin, I'd have been really good. I'm practicing the violin, I'm really good. Or when I practice the violin, I'll be good. The correct answer is, if I'd practiced the violin, I'd have been really good. Well, the person didn't practice the violin, so they would never have been really good. So the third conditional talks about a condition in the past with a resultant action also in the past, but both things to be unlikely, untrue, unrealistic. Type 5, the mixed conditional. What was that again? So the mixed conditional usually refers to a mixture of the second and third conditionals. Remember, the second and third ones are the unlikely ones. The condition is in the past tense, but the consequence refers to the present tense. Here's our 3 sentences. Pick out the mixed conditional. If I listen to him, I'll be in trouble. If I'd listened to him, I'd be in trouble now. Or if I listen to him, I'm in trouble. It's B. If I'd listened, past tense, if I'd listened to him, I'd be in trouble now. But I didn't listen to him, so I'm not in trouble now. Something didn't happen in the past, so it's not going to happen now. How did you get on with those multiple choice questions? Let's do some more. I'll give you the questions first, and then we'll review the answers. If you want to play along, press pause as we're going through the questions, or write the questions down and write your answers as well, and then we'll review them. Good luck. Here's an example we're going to work through together before we go into the actual questions. What type of conditional is being used in this sentence? When it rains, the grass gets wet. So that's an example of the zero condition. Something happening now with a consequence also now, both in the present tense, and a fact. Something, a resultant, that's definitely going to happen as a consequence of a condition having happened. Let's move on with the questions. When you freeze water, it turns to ice. What type of conditional is that? Question 2. If it rains tomorrow, I won't be playing golf. What kind of conditional is that? If I won the lottery, I would buy a ticket for a space flight. What kind of conditional is that? Question 4. If the weather had been good, we would have went water skiing. What kind of conditional is that? Question 5. If he had looked at the map, he wouldn't be lost now. What kind of conditional is that? Question 6. If I had gone to university, I'd be a doctor now. What kind of conditional is that? Question 7. If you had got up earlier, you would have caught the earlier train. What kind of conditional is that? Question 8. You get burned if you touch a fire. What kind of conditional is that? Question 9. If I find your email, I will send you the forms. What kind of conditional is that? Question 10. If I were the Prime Minister, I would lower all taxes. What kind of conditional is that? Pause here if you want to attempt to answer all the questions. If you're ready to proceed, let's look at the answers. When it rains, the grass gets wet. That is a zero conditional. it's a fact in the present. Question 1. If you freeze water, it turns to ice. It's also zero conditional. It's a fact. Something factually happens now, something factually will result. Question 2. If it rains tomorrow, I won't be playing golf. First conditional. If something happens, something also is likely to happen. Question 3. If I won the lottery, I would buy a ticket for a space flight. Second conditional. So something that's unlikely in the present would have a result which is equally unlikely in the future. Question 4. If the weather had been good, we would have went water skiing. That's third conditional. The weather wasn't good, so we didn't go water skiing in the past. Something that was unlikely resulted in something equally unlikely. It's in the past. It didn't happen. Question 5. If he had looked at the map, he wouldn't be lost now. That's a mixed conditional. So something that was unlikely to have happened in the past had an equally unlikely result in the present. So he didn't look at the map in the past, so that's why they are lost now. It's too late. He didn't look at the map, so that's why they're lost now. Question 6. If I had gone to university, I'd be a doctor now. That's also mixed conditional. So I didn't go to university, so I'm not a doctor now. Question 7. If you had got up earlier, you would have caught the earlier train. So, third conditional. Things that are unlikely to have happened in the past with an equally unlikely result in the past as well. So if you had got up earlier, well, the fact is you didn't get up earlier, so you couldn't have caught the earlier train. It was impossible. Question 8. You get burned if you touch a fire. That's the zero conditional. It's a fact. Obviously, if you touch a fire, you are going to get burned. Question 9. If I find your email, I will send you the forms. That is an example of the first conditional. If something happens now, it's going to have a likely result in the future. And question 10, if I were the Prime Minister, I would lower all taxes. So, second conditional. I'm not going to be the Prime Minister, so I'm not going to lower all taxes. Unlikely to happen now, and the result of the unlikely thing happening now is something that's equally unlikely to happen in the future. The second conditional. How did you get on with those questions? Let's summarise conditionals again. These are tricky. These are difficult to identify the specific type of conditional. But again, to reiterate, don't worry if you cannot identify the exact right type, whether it's a second or a third, or a second, third, or a mixed. The important thing is to recognise a sentence which has a conditional in it and be able to use conditionals yourself in the future. Conditional is a thing that must happen before something else can happen. We say that something happened is conditional on something else having happened. Conditionals are sentences containing if or similar words such as when. The 5 different types: zero conditional, first conditional, second conditional, third conditional, and mixed conditional. Here are the references that I've used for this presentation. First reference is 2001 ITTT.com, Unit 16 on conditionals. The second reference that I've used is 2023 7ESL.com/English conditionals. They own the copyright of the material which I have referenced. I don't own the copyright and I do not claim to own the copyright. I own the copyright just to this audio. Thanks again for listening, and if you took any value from this presentation, please like, share with your friends and family, and subscribe. Thanks again for listening. This is Alan Begg from TEFL signing off. Until the next time. See ya.